All right, stand for the pledge, please.
We'll just do this one here.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. This is Monday, May 20th. If you have any questions or business or comments, come up to this microphone, give us your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind. Call the roll, please.
Cedar,
Here.
Ellery,
Here.
Kinsfater,
Here.
Kupa, Laporte,
Here.
McCartney,
Here.
Blatt.
I make a motion to excuse both Watt and Kufa.
I'll support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Number 4 is consent agenda, City Council minutes of May 6, 2019, regular and closed meetings. Recommendation approved, and the Cemetery Board of Trustees minutes of April 2nd, 2019 meeting. Recommendation received.
Motion to approve A and B as presented. Support.
Motion made, Senator Rivers. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going to open the public hearing for the 2019-2020 annual budget. Mr. Booth?
Well, first order, I'd like to ask the clerk if she could look back and see if how the attendance compares tonight to most budget hearing nights. This has got to be a record.
Sure.
Yeah, they're all here for that.
They're still coming. Okay, I'd like to, council, everyone here has a copy of the slides. I'd love to have had the TVs here so we could project it up on the TVs, but unfortunately, we're not available to do that here. There are copies back on the side table if someone would like to follow along with the slides. I've printed out 25 copies. So everyone should have a chance to get one. And so to start, I'd like to start out by talking a little bit about the taxable value. And I'll do the page 2. Historical taxable value increased 3.6%. The total taxable value is $206,665,623. That is still down $39,840,000 from the 2008 high, so before the Great Recession. And in tax dollars, that would equal about $660,000 that we're still down. So we're trending in a nice direction, but you know, again, overall, we're still down and will be for a period of time. Moving on to the next slide, page 3. You'll see this is a breakdown of the mills that are assessed for operating. Remains unchanged at the 13.0476. The road millage is this is the second year that we have the millage, 2.4902. So after this year, we'll have another 8. And then the pension fund is 1 mil for a total of 16.5378. Total change for the general fund operating millage, in tax dollars, it increased $93,762. Any questions on the millage piece of it before we move on?
Not a question, but clarification that the millage rate is the same. as
Millage
last
rate
year.
is the same, yes. Page 4 is a pie chart of the general fund revenues. I think the two things I'd like to point out there, I'd like to start by saying that the largest source is obviously property tax revenues at 70%. And then state shared revenues is the second largest at 14%. And that's $548,877. On to page 5. This is the expenditures. And again, I'd like to point out the two largest items. First is the largest expense is for police protection at 24% of the total general fund budget. The second line item, or the second largest, would be what we're calling fringe benefits. And within fringe benefits, we include health care, a transfer to the pension fund, and our OPEB funding. Those three items make up 20% of the overall expense.
I have a quick question back on page 4.
Yeah.
The state shared revenues, now, when the state got rid of the personal property tax that we used to collect,
Yes.
how does that change as far as when I look at that number?
It does not change state shared revenues. What they do is they give us, for a period of time, they're going to give us additional money into our tax revenues. So, for those that have their budget, they make extra payments to us. And again, they're going to phase it over a period of time. And it would be called Local Community Stabilization Shared Revenue. So it's a different line item.
Is that, like, does it go up, down, stay the same, or?
It's all over the place. Yeah.
We have no
It
indication?
was 300,000, 380, and then down to 156.
I guess that's what it is. We don't have any set way to count on that because we can't be sure what it's going to be.
It's extra money we can use when we get it for roads and for pension.
That's right.
Back to page 5, any questions on the general fund expenditures as far as what makes up a certain category? Okay, moving on to page 6, some of the notes. Revenues for the general fund, total revenues, $3,918,563. That number is $158,000 higher than the prior year. Property tax increase of almost $94,000. State shared revenues are up almost $46,000. And I wanted to also point out that this budget includes reimbursement from the golf course of $20,000, which leaves the balance due to the general fund of $82,000. Moving on to the next page, 7, expenses. Again, it's a balanced budget, increased to $158,000. Total general fund expenses. In total, $3,918,563. Police increased just under $66,000. That's a 3% increase on last year's actual. Park maintenance increase of $48,000. That's an increase of 12% on last year's actual results. And the plan is to continue repairs within the park system. Last year we did the Palmer Park. We'd like to continue with the boardwalk along Clinton and Rotary Park's in rough shape, and then also the bike path and things like that always need some repair work. So that's where the extra money's coming in there. And then community forestry, an increase of $26,000, which includes $16,000 for tree trimming, removal, and planting. And those are the big movers. Moving on from the general fund to major streets. Total revenues of $705,717. Total expenses $755,716. Revenues and expenses are projected to increase $77,000 and $127,000 respectively. The road millage, the 2.4902 that we talked about on the millage slide, produces $160,000 for major street repairs. State shared gas revenues are projected in this budget to increase by $73,000. We'll now have $455,000 in state shared gas revenues for the major streets. Construction costs are projected to be $459,000. In 2018, Range Road, again, is it's considered a major street. The intersection at Brown and Kearney was reconstructed. This year's project is the Clinton Avenue M29 to 3rd Street. Moving on to page 9, local streets, which makes up 60-some% of our total road miles in town. Total revenue of $738,679. Total expenses $788,678. Revenues and expenses are projected to increase by $26,000 and then $76,000 respectively. Again, the road millage, 2.4902, produces for local streets, $355,000 for repairs. State shared gas revenues are projected to be $186,000, which is an increase of $33,000. So when you look at the major street, the state, when they give us money, they tell us where it goes, whether it's major or local, and you can see that they give us a lot more for major streets. They want you to keep your major streets in good repair. So it's $455,000 versus local streets of $186,000. Construction costs for local streets are at $482,000. 2018 projects included North 3rd, Vine to Brown, Sinclair, which we did just a partial, Prestwick, South 4th, we did one block between Vine and Orchard. Current year projects include Henry, South 11th, from Clinton to just south of Cedar, and then Thornapple, west of 9th.
Wasn't Henry Street a last year project?
It was started last year, but it was after the September 30. So it's in the current year fiscal. Moving on to page 10, pension fund. The pension fund's balance at September 30 was $46,600. And basically what that is it's what's left over when we transfer money from the general fund and or capture tax with the 1 mil that we have not yet remitted to MERS, but will. At December 31st of 17, the city's pension plan with MERS was at 57% funding, or a funding level. This is a decrease of 1% when compared to the same period of 12/31/16. Total plan per participants is at 73. We have 23 active, 45 retired, and 5 vested but not drawing. Paperwork has been filed with the state to comply with Public Act 202 of 2018. Additionally, a corrective action plan has been filed to address our pension funding as it is not at the 60% required funding level. Last week, the city made an extra contribution of $250,000 to MERS. And most of that information we've had at recent council meetings, and this is just a follow through on those action items. At December 31st of 2017, our most recent annual pension report shows that annual employee required contributions will need to increase from $828,000 for the year beginning October 1st of 19 to $1,010,000 for the year starting October 1st of 2024. This is an increase of about 21%. Current year, so it would have been October 1st of 18, so the fiscal year we're currently in, that contribution amount is $782,000. So we're going to go from 782 to 828, which is $46,000 higher, about 5%. Any questions on the pension? Okay, moving on to page 12, golf course. Just a few items, or a couple items here. Fund deficit was eliminated back in 2014. Cash has improved from a negative $153,000 to a positive $86,000 at the end of last year. So, moving in the right direction. During this budget cycle, the general fund will be reimbursed at $20,000, which I had mentioned earlier. Page 13, wastewater fund. During 2018, the city televised sewer lines on roads where repairs were being made. When issues were discovered, we fixed the sewer lines prior to doing the road work. Outstanding sewer debt at December 31st of 18, that should actually be September 30 of 18, was $2,850,000. Currently, there is no millage for sewer debt as the annual debt payments are made via the service charge to the users. Utility rates are being reviewed and proposed changes will be shared with council for consideration prior to our next meeting. Page 14, cash balance has improved. I've left this one on for a few years. Probably could take it off now. But we had a cash balance of $4 at September 30th of 2011. The fund currently sits at $487,000. Which brings us to the next item here. Recently, the city applied for 2 road grants that would help with replacement of water mains on Gulf and Fifth Streets. If we were to receive a grant for either road, not both, but either, the money we have would be consumed on one of those repairs. So we do need to continue adding to the funding. So going forward, efforts will continue to increase available cash for replacement of our aged infrastructure. And then last slide here, I'm going to move on to the harbor. Just a few notes there. The unrestricted net position improved by $71,000 for the fiscal year ended 2018. Outstanding debt for the harbor is $340,000, and the final debt payment will be made in 2026. That was on the renovation that was done 2006. During the year, the parking lot was seal coated and restriped. And they did quite a few other maintenance type improvements. This year, they're looking to, and I think they may have it done, if you know, Annette, with the, they're switching over from their TV. They're going to have it so people can stream at the harbor. So if they want to watch Netflix or whatever they might have in their boat, that will be the option. And we're not going to pay for direct TV going forward. So those are the changes. Questions on anything that's presented?
Any questions from the public here? Yes, come right over here, sir.
For me?
Yep.
Yeah, just a question on that taxable value. How does that, when you're talking that 3.5%, whatever, cost of living that's established by the state is like 2.5%. So are you saying that the city is growing at about 1% in their taxable value over and above what the state allocates, they can raise it?
They're stuck with, I shouldn't say they're stuck, the amount that they increase would be either one of 2 factors. The rate that, when they do their studies, right? So if they do the studies, and there would be a piece that they can bump up the tax rate if that's the way it works with the cost of living. And then the other piece would be if we have some new expansion or new business. And we've had a few houses that have been added.
How would you compare that kind of growth? To me, it's very, very small growth compared to some of the communities around us as far as taxable value.
I have not compared to the others around us, but the cost of living factor would have to be the same. Everyone's in St. Clair County, right?
Cost of living is the same for everybody in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
That's at 2.5%.
Yeah.
And you're growing at an additional 1%.
Correct.
My question is, how does that compare to surrounding communities?
I don't
And
have
how
that
will the
calculation.
city start to think about how to improve that taxable value to get your revenues up to where you were back in '08? Number one, you get it when new housing comes in. Number two, you get it on sales because assessed value goes up much higher than taxable value. So when sales are transacted in the city, sometimes that increase is at 100%. If a house is valued at, let's say it's been lived in a long time, 200,000, and then sells for 400, that's a double in taxable value that it goes to right away. I'm curious just how you compare with other communities as far as that growth, because I know the city's always talked about funds being very short to do roads. You've asked for additional millage and whatever. I would think it'd be smart for the management of the city to know if you're falling behind in your approval of taxable value or if you're running at an equal to other communities. That's my only question.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wondered how much you budget for wage increases.
How much? Any particular area?
Across the board, generally,
Some none, some 3.
three.
I can give you a breakdown on it. I don't have a breakdown right now for each department. Would you like to stop by, Mr. Kleeman?
tough to get in at 4:30 without traffic.
Anybody else? All right, then we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Booth. On to number 6, ordinance and resolution. Ordinance introduction 2019-02 rezoning of 678 North Riverside from PUD to R1. Mr. Downey.
Your Honor, back on May 6th, the council considered a recommendation from the Planning Commission to rezone 678 North Riverside from Plan Unit Development to R1. That effect must be done by way of ordinance. I have prepared an ordinance for council's consideration that would give that recommendation effect, and it's being offered for the purpose of introduction tonight. If it were to be introduced, then it would be subsequently adopted at our next meeting.
All right.
I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance.
All right, the motion is made. Supporters, any questions or comments? Mr. Gendernalick?
Yes, Gary Ginnerlich. I represent Wally and Donna Evans. They own the property. And we would ask that you, even though you made that motion already, not change the zoning classification to from the PUD to a different classification. When I wrote to you last week, I pointed out that your city planner in October of 2014 wrote a letter of recommendation, and in it, he stated, and I had part of the quote, but there was a part before that, and it says, "The request for the PUD provides a good balance between the property owner's original intent and the city's vision to protect this area of riverfront properties from higher density multifamily residential. CWA generally supports the request, but reserves a final recommendation for approval until a thorough review of the landscape plan can be completed. In addition, a recommendation condition on approval is that the condominium regulations of section 5.29 are met." So your planner in 14 pointed out that this was, in essence, a good classification for this piece of property. His only question was with reference to landscaping. Now, Mr. Evans hasn't moved forward on his project, but he still owns it, and he still intends to move forward. And it would seem to me that if your council adopted the ordinance to change the zoning back, that Mr. Evans still has the right to come back to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the council to ask that this PUD be approved. And if that occurred, my exhibit number 1 is going to be your planner's report from 2014, because the neighborhood hasn't really changed any significantly since that time frame. And with my submission, I had this aerial where we show there's a 4-unit condo in close proximity, a 3-unit house, another 2-unit house, then the Evans property that they were going to convert to 3, and under the previous zoning for the multifamily, you could probably get 8 units there, and then there's a 2-unit house in close proximity to that. So it seems to me that by changing the ordinance, you're depriving the Evans of the value of their property, and then you force them to go back through the rezoning process, which I think we would have a pretty good chance of being rezoned. Obviously, you have to vote on it, but the facts are noted in your planner's report from 2014 that the less density preserves the neighborhood, preserves the interest in trying to keep density at a reasonable rate, and preserves their right to use the property in the manner they subscribed as to the 3 units in that one building. So we would ask that, even though you made that motion and it was seconded, that the vote be to not adopt that motion. If you had any questions, I'd try to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Gendernalick? All right, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else comment or question?
One comment, Your Honor, the same planner that reviewed it in 2014 reviewed it again at our last Planning Commission meeting, and we held off for about 2 months. We had 2 new planning people come on, planning commission, and we waited for them to get up to speed. And we held our public meeting, a hearing on the issue, and there were approximately 8 or 10 residents there. We heard from the planner. Mr. Evans has had over 3 years to do it, and the way the ordinance reads, I believe, if not any construction's done within the first year, the property reverts back to R1. And after discussion, it was unanimous for the planning commission to return it back to R1. That gives you a little bit of history. But
Mr. Evans?
Try to make it brief. When we came to the planning commission and also the council, we had put together an engineering or a design plan to do 3 condominiums on that property. Again, when I bought the property, I saw there were 6 units right to the one side of me, and there were 4 units across the street. So I did my homework, and it was zoned R3. When the city changed it from R3 to the PUD, I was in favor of that because it gave the city more control, and we could do something nice. When that house was built back in '61 by the Fisher family, by Barb Fisher and Mr. Inslee from Marine City. I lived in Marine City, and in the 7th grade, we saw that house being built when we'd go to Port Huron up to the show. Took for maybe a year and a half, but it was called all over the country in architectural magazines a wonder house. Once we got that first design done with the engineer and designer from East China, I can't think of his name, but anyway, very nice, did a nice job. So we got that approved, and I contacted Barbara Fisher. We tried to find prints of the house so we could have some of the structural integrity of the aluminum. I talked to Dee. He went through your archives. We couldn't find prints. I went to Tom Perkowski, who bought the Fisher Inslee building down in Marine City, and he couldn't find prints. We found a spec book that gave us some assistance, but in that, I did my due diligence as far as, again, talking to Barbara Fisher, who is in assisted living over in Bingham Farm. She's the one who originally built the house. And again, it was built on glass and aluminum and very, very architectural ahead of its time. And she put me in touch with a designer from Grosse Pointe. So talked to him, and he does quite a few high-end condominiums on Lakeshore Drive, and he was very interested in talking to me. So we had a meeting up at the house with a builder and a local designer, and then this individual. And he said, if we could bring this house back to the Fisher Inslee look, but make it an efficient type development, people would love it. They would come from the west side, they would come from Grosse Pointe area. He said the last question they would ask if we did it right in the development, and he gave all the reasons why, very convincing as to why we should design it differently and preserve the history of the home. He said the last question people will ask is, how much is it? Because they will absolutely love it, and just because of the history of the Fisher family, which was Fisher Body. I think at that time when the house was built, they put over $2 million, between $2 and $2.5 million into the house in '61, which is 60 years ago. So after talking to him, I got a proposal from him. The first design we did with a gentleman in East China was about $15,000. After talking to him, he said he would probably have to have about $100,000 to design the house really correctly for 3 high-end condos with elevators, and they would be people like myself who are snowbirds, live there in the summer, go to Florida in the winter. It wouldn't be high occupancy at all, no children, all adults, all ownership of all 3 couples. And we'd bring people in that would probably be spending around $1 million to $1.3 million per condo. It would be about a $3 million project to do that house correctly. So after hearing that, I couldn't go the original way because the Fisher Inslee house to me meant something. I also talked to Andy Markle down in Marine City, who actually did all the cutting of the aluminum down in the Fisher Inslee building. He had some historic information. Then he put me in touch with Mr. Deal. I don't know if you remember Mr. Deal. Would you remember him? He was an inventor that lived up in Port Huron. He had a lot of money. he bought that house as a second owner. That's when it got turned into sort of the wood structure that it is, cedar siding. They got rid of a lot of the glass, the aluminum's still in it, but it really lost the Fisher Inslee flair that it really had. They even put regular roofs on it. It had all commercial flat roofs on it. But when Mr. Deal did it, he was also one of the executives at Chris Craft. When he did it, he wanted to turn it into something completely different, and he did. But it can come back to the original. And again, so I said, if I go forward, I'll go forward and put it back to the original Fisher Inslee look, but much more energy efficient than it was, which would be very costly. After that happened, trying to make up my mind if I wanted to move forward with the 100,000, because we had difficulty with the board and time constraints. When we first started the project, I was told the PUD would be forever. Once we got it rezoned, I would be like the St. Clair Inn, the other PUD, and that's been in force 50 years. I was told at the time that if we didn't build in a year, I would have to come back to planning and back to the council with a new design. I have no problem in doing that. I explained that. I never knew the PUD would go away. But anyway, after talking to that engineer, going into it and trying to assess what he said as far as what kind of people would come up here to St. Clair to buy that high-end condominium, my health started to fail. So I had a couple years of touch and go trying to figure out what was wrong with the way I felt. So that took some time also. That seemed to resolve itself as good as expected at 70 years old. And at 70 now, I bought that house when I was about 62. At 70, I would like to downsize. It's a 9,200 square foot house. My wife and I live in there alone. I would like to develop it in a way that I could get 3 units out of it, have 2 other couples living in that house so we could share whatever, taking care of ourselves and taking care of the house and whatever, and making it really a nice development for the city. And we would take taxable value, Mike, from my house right now at about $600,000 to taxable value of about $3 million easily. That would be a major, that would be a 500% increase in taxable value, which supports the county, supports the city, and whatever. You guys know, Tom, you came down, all you guys came down, looked at the property. You know how much landscaping is down there. You know how private that house is. One of the few houses that you drive down in, you don't even see it when you go by the road. As far as causing congestion, I've heard that from people on the hill, car or whatever. It would be nothing but a plus for the city if I build it. I don't have to do it. I'm a guy because the Inslee House meant something to me when I was a kid, and it still does to this day. And I would take the chance and put the money into it and build it back like it was. If the Fisher Inslee house that got put into your community back in '61 by Barbara Fisher, if it doesn't mean anything to the city, I don't know anybody else that's going to do it. What I'd like to think is that the next guy that buys it would put that kind of money into it for an individual house, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think one of these days that house is going to hit the wrecking ball. Somebody's going to, because it's a beautiful lot, big lot, very large. Somebody's going to tear it down and they're going to do something completely new. And it'll probably be a house that'll be 4,000 or 5,000 square feet as opposed to 9,200. And it'll be just a completely different development. To me, it means something to put it back to the Inslee look. And I'm probably the guy that can do it. At the time also, when I had some health issues, I had 2 projects going, one in Casco Township and I had one going in Ira Township. One was North Star financed, one was Chemical Bank financed, Telmer Bank at the time. The banks don't like you to do more than 1 or 2 projects at a time. They like you to finish one, start an income stream, and get balance back. I never had intentions of doing that house that quickly or the condominium that quickly. So I felt like I was told I wouldn't have to, but then all of a sudden the constraints came on and said, you got to do it now. Health-wise, I couldn't do it. Financially, I couldn't do it. If the city wants me to take another shot at it, do what Gary says, give me an opportunity to come back. If that's what you want to do is change it now. Or if you're really sure you don't want that that house turned into 3 condominiums, like I explained, then I understand your decision, and we'll do something different. So I appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Anybody else? All right, the motion's been made and supported. Let's call the roll, please.
Your Honor, should we have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion is to rezone 678 from PUD to R1. It's been made and supported. Call the roll, please.
Ellery?
No.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
McCartney?
No.
Cedar?
Yes.
Motion fails, Your Honor, for lack of 4 votes.
All right. We'll move to B.
Your Honor, before City Council is a proposed resolution that will amend a resolution previously adopted by City Council back in October of 2017. By way of background, the council might recall that the city assessor proposed a resolution that would result in the vacation of Rough Street and parts of Orchard Street in the city. And subsequent to that vacation resolution being adopted, the city has initiated a plat amendment case. It's currently pending, in fact, nearing resolution before Judge Kelly in the St. Clair County Circuit Court. What we've discovered during the course of the process there is that the resolution as recited in 17-19 incorrectly states the legal description and of the parcels that are at issue. That error was discovered by the city's engineer in preparing the amended plat. So what we have in the original resolution 17-19 is a description of the part of Orchard Street that's implicated by the vacation as the west 234 feet, which is west of North Kearney Drive. The city engineer determined that it's actually 234.21 feet. So in the interest of being correct, and because we have to affix the proper legal description to the plat amendment that's going to be approved by Judge Kelly, I have requested that council change the 17-19 resolution anywhere in that resolution where the description of 234 feet is indicated. It would now read 234.21 feet.
Motion to approve.
Support?
Motion made and supported. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Ellery?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yeah.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
Thank you. Number 7, Court Administration, Mr. Booth.
Your Honor, I have a few items this evening. I'd like to start with City Hall will be closed next Monday in observance of Memorial Day. Second item, this is more of, as part of the St. Clair County Watershed Group, wanted to share a couple of upcoming related events. On Saturday, June 1st, the Sturgeon Festival is being held in Fort Gratiot Light Station Park. It's at 2800 Omar Street in Port Huron. Again, we're part of the watershed for St. Clair County, so this is one of the events that that group participates in. The festival will be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the piece that's related to the city of St. Clair, there's a Sturgeon Brew fundraiser. I think this might be the second year of it, which is Thursday, May 30th, from 5 to 9 at Warwater. And it's a festive, they're calling it a festive fundraiser party to kick off the Blue Water Sturgeon Fest. You can view live sturgeon in fish tanks, meet lake sturgeon biologists. Didn't know there was such a thing, but you can. And researchers. So I just want to point that out. And then M29, the Michigan Department of Transportation has confirmed that the City of St. Clair's road diet is scheduled to begin the week of June 10th. Changes with the road diet will cover M29 from the northern border with St. Clair Township to Palmer at the south end of town. As soon as MDOT supplies a final diagram, we'll post it on the city's website so everybody can take a peek at it. And we will have hard copies as well, if somebody would like to stop by and pick them up. Couple of items that are associated with that. I know we've had conversations about the parking along in front of Palmer Park. Currently, it's parallel with outlines. Once the road diet is done, it'll be parallel with lines. There will be no angle parking. The roadway's not wide enough. The light at Clinton will be retimed to help get traffic through. That will be done, and then within 18 months, they're going to replace the light, but initially, it'll just be a retiming of it. And that's all I have, Your
Did
Honor.
they give you a timeline on when they're going to adjust the light?
I think it's all going to happen
Same
around the
time
same
now?
time,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
that
Is
week.
there any information on the light at Clinton, or at, I'm sorry, at 29 and Vine?
I have nothing on that yet.
Nothing on that.
Anything else, Mr. Booth? All right, Mr. Downey, you have anything else?
Your Honor, just one brief item, and that's just to maybe reiterate something I referenced in the previous item on the resolution. Members of the community have been affected by this plat amendment petition that we filed, and that's anyone who has property within 300 feet of those vacated streets. They've been named by, required by law to be a part of this complaint as it's worked its way through the circuit court process. That matter will be resolved finally next Tuesday, May 28th, before Judge Kelly, at which time we're anticipating the court will enter an order granting the relief that we've requested. Mr. Pangori, the city's engineer, has prepared an amended plat, and along with this resolution passed tonight with Judge Kelly's order and Mr. Pangori's amended plat, we'll be submitting that to the state's Office of Remonumentation, and the case will be resolved. So those residents have been notified of next Tuesday's hearing. There's no need for them to appear in court unless they're just curious, but ultimately the matter will be resolved, and I'll be happy to report its conclusion at the first meeting in June. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any city departments tonight?
Yes, Your Honor. Just wanted to let everybody know the results from the May 7th, 2019 special election are available on the City of St. Clair website under the City Clerk or Elections tab, and countywide results are available at stclaircountyclerk.org. And the deadline for submitting any material for an August election has passed, and the City of St. Clair will not be holding an election in August. But I would anticipate something in November. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other departments?
Yeah, I have a couple. Just so the citizens know, we're having some issues with the tornado sirens. The fire department can activate the one downtown on the river. They can do that manually. The one off Kearney and the one at Yankee is not working. Emergency management is working on it, so that one electrician or technician is working on all the ones, because there's other ones in the county that are having issues too. So right now, our plan is fire will set off the one downtown, and if time permits, fire apparatus will go to the west side of town and north side to let the citizens know. Also, the river's high. Coast Guard, Detroit monitors it with there's a river meter just south of Cargill. They're keeping an eye on it, and emergency management's keeping an eye on it. We're pretty lucky because we have a seawall pretty much all the way through town, and we're still about 18 to 24 inches below the top. When the pleasure crafts hit in a couple weeks and the weather gets bad, the wakes may come over, I don't know, like, excuse me. Right now, we got 20 inches at least, so. And there are free sandbags at the DPW if people need. That's all I have for that.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody have any question for Chief? Thank you. We'll go to the authorities, boards, committees, commissions. Anybody have anything?
I just have one announcement, Your Honor. The Cemetery Board of Trustees would like me to announce that there's 2 vacancies. Anyone willing to serve on the Cemetery Board of Trustees, welcome to fill an application at City Hall. It's a very active board. They do a lot of good things at the cemetery, so your help is needed and appreciated.
Thank you. All right, we have no unfinished business. We'll go to number 9, new business. A, approve permit application for annual 4th of July fireworks display.
Your Honor, in your packets is the annual application for the fireworks display held on July 4th in the City of St. Clair. The applicant is the City of St. Clair. The application includes the information from the pyrotech operator and the specifics of the fireworks that will be included that day. So the action recommended is to approve the application for the permits.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to letter B, approve special events permit for Blue Water Offshore Race River Fest. This is for the special events activities, Chief?
Yeah, I have all the paperwork in for the races that are from July 24th through the 28th.
Motion to approve.
Motion made, support. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to C, approve lease for offshore. Annette, is there one change we need to make in there?
Yes, the lease had a highlighted area specifying the security company. I believe that's going to be changed. And also the verbiage to be changed to delete the word double. So the sentence will read, Blue Water Offshore Racing Association will provide private security by whomever, where and when applicable on said premises with personnel staff level equal to personnel staff level in 2018. So it's just literally deleting one word.
Motion to approve with those changes.
Support.
All right, the motion is made, support. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, question back here.
How much is the lease for?
It's usually $1. Dollar lease.
Yes, that is correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Special event permit, St. Clair Jazz Festival. Chief?
Yeah, I have the Jazz Festival's paperwork, everything's in, and for August 17th, I recommend you approve it.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to A, approve assignment for vendor permit process for 4th of July and Jazz Festival to St. Clair Events.
Yes, Your Honor, this action allows the vendor fees to be increased for these two events. The increase in the vendor fee will be a donation to each event, but it requires a motion from council to approve the permit process to St. Clair Events.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Okay, made and supported. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? F, extend vendor hours 7/4, 7/26, and 7/27 for special events.
Yes, Your Honor. Again, for these two particular events, we do have vendors on site. Our current ordinance states vendors' hours of operation are from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The motion recommended is to extend the vendor hours to 11 o'clock for 4th of July and 11:30 for Riverfest to allow for extended sales on those particular dates.
Move to approve.
Support.
All right, the motion is made and supported. Anybody have any questions or anything? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 10, claims, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, claims and accounts for May 8th and 16th, 2018.
Hearing no questions, Your Honor, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to number 11, public comment, public questions. If you have anything, 3 minutes worth, sir? Is your name and address, please?
Alex Yu from 750 North Riverside Avenue. Going back to the Evans property, I just have a question. So this, under these circumstances, then any property along there could be rezoned as a PUD. Is that correct? I would think. And the reason I bring it up is, and that may not be a fair question, but there was an ordinance proposed in 2015. I talked to Mr. Booth about this, and it had something to do with restricting everything from Brown Street north to R1. In other words, to protect against people changing that riverfront. Now, I would assume that, based on what you vote on tonight, that this ordinance probably won't ever be brought up. Is that correct? Because I think the Evans property is already north of Brown, if I'm not mistaken. I just asked a question, that's all.
Johnny?
As far as I'm aware, the ordinance that you indicate has not been brought to city council. If it were at some point in the future, then the council may choose to adopt it. But to date, I guess to your first question, I think that as of right now, any property owner north of Brown may seek rezoning, as did the Evanses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Gleeman?
I was out there saying, that's just curious how they're doing on the restrooms at Collection.
My understanding is they're unlocked.
Upstairs and been around, I was there to ask.
Thank you.
If for some reason they're not, please give me a call, Bill.
Young lady right here in the front. Mind give us your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Rebecca Karen. I live on Henry Street. That's what we're going to talk about. I talked with John Watt back in March about the condition of the street after the resurfacing, and I believe he talked with Mr. Booth about it, and led me to believe that everyone understood that the project did not go as planned. So what we have now are multiple, like almost a dozen holes in the street already. I watched a lot of the project through my window. I did talk with some of the workers during the project. And basically, I would like to know how they're going to go about making these corrections, and also talk about the grass seed and the dirt that they put back down between our sidewalks and the street. They had to take that out to put the curbs in, and it does not look anything like it did before. And also bring to your attention that tour buses and semis are not a rare sight coming down that street. I can't help but think that that would cause rapid deterioration.
The road, they have until the end of June to get the repairs done. And they did stop it because of the weather last year, which is why you have some of the potholes that you're referring to. So
Okay.
those will be fixed.
So what
Before they'll have to go back in, cut it out, fix the base, put new asphalt down on the base layer, and then put a top coat on.
So when you say fix, they're going to cut out sections, or they're going to take the entire base off?
They won't take the entire base off.
Did they have a compacting analysis when they put that base down?
They do test work. And they didn't finish because they knew they were having issues with the base
Okay.
because of the rain.
Right, I watched that out my window.
Mhm.
I saw a spot in the base material where the asphalt machine actually stopped, like, oh, wait a minute, should we go over this? I do realize there are deadlines, but if we're seeing holes before December, can we assume that there's going to be more that might show up next year, when I was told that this project was going to last 30 years?
If you'd like to stay after, I'll be happy to talk to you, because I'd like to find out exactly any other information you might have.
Oh,
I'm meeting with the engineer
I'd
on
be glad to.
Thursday.
I'd be glad to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with a public comment?
Since you're talking about roads, how they cut the dump on Clinton Avenue?
The newly poured Clinton Avenue,
How they cut the piece out of it, they put it,
my understanding is that it had cracks in it, so they had to pull them out and redo it.
Anybody else? Ms. Bodett?
Mary Bodett, 1170 South 12th. Our 18th Marble Eye was a tremendous success. We sold more tickets than we have for several years. But the biggest fish, would you believe, was 5 pounds, 14 ounces. Where's the big ones? Do they hide like the deer hide when it's hunting time? Anyway, and then some of you remember Mike Rorty that was here and was involved in this. Well, he sent us a check, this will get me, in memory of the old-time fishermen, Joe Landra, Bob Yabba Hayden's, and my husband. So that was really appreciated, because he moved down south. He's in one of the Carolinas. Well, we will write him a wonderful letter. But anyway, I wanted to say that, and I want to thank local people, local merchants and everybody who support us. It was great, and we just had a little bit of rain, not too bad, not too bad. So anyway, we're doing good, we're going for 20, we hope.
Great job. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll go to number 12, Mayor and City Council. I have two quick things. Believe it or not, we think the next meeting is going to be at City Hall, the first meeting in June, so we'll keep that in your back of your mind. That's what we're shooting for. Also, don't forget the Memorial Day Parade this Monday. It's at 1 o'clock. It ends in front of Palmer Manor. There's a little ceremony there. Obviously, everyone's welcome. I encourage you to participate in that. Does anybody else have anything?
I think they still got sandbags down at the DPW if anybody needs them.
Sandbags at DPW?
Bark for Life is Saturday, June 1st, down at Palmer Park Boardwalk. And River Day is June 8th, and that's with the free activities for children, free kayak and canoe rental from the harbor. There's a fishing derby here at Pine Shores. You can find all that information on stclairrec.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody? Okay. All right, Mr. Laporte, do you have anything down there?
Just that the fireworks committee is working on fireworks. Anybody wishing to donate, contact us or contact City Hall. We're happy to take their money. And the mayor has arranged for some community money again too. Thank you. With that,
Just so you know, last year they collected over $20,000 for the fireworks, so.
so this year it should be just as nice, if not better.
Thank you.
Good job. Keep up the good work.
Anything new in the parking lot, up of, behind the Coney Island?
Still working on it.
Moving forward?
Still, we got a couple more things we got to iron out.
Nothing else, Your Honor. I make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Whoop.
Sorry. Jeff, I go north Riverside, something just said Coney Island. Did they ever call you back?
2 days later, he's waiting for the health department to come because of all his drains and plumbing are in the floor, but he doesn't want to pour the floor until he gets the okay from them.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. Have a good night, everybody. Happy Memorial Day.